All right, here we are. It is Common Sense Ohio. I know. It's been a couple of weeks and everybody's been busy, but Common Sense rolls on. We are back and back with a vengeance at the Roundtable, Channel 511, brought to you, of course, by Harper Plus Accounting. Our accountants could be yours. 11/12/25, but I'm going to turn back the clock to 11/11/25.
Yes,
because on the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, World War II ended in 1919. This is my fact of the day, of course.
World War One.
World War One. Did I say two?
Yeah.
I misspoke. I meant World War One because we all know that 1919 was not World War II. At any rate, that was the catalyst for what we now call Veterans Day. And it looks like old Woody Wilson proclaimed November 11th as the first commemoration of Armistice Day as it started out, because that was commemorating the end of the Great War, the war that ended all wars that did not really end all the wars. In 1938, it became officially a federal holiday. In 1954, it was officially changed to Veterans Day to honor all veterans. In 1971, they said, look, we're just going to make it the fourth Monday in October. And for whatever reason, we didn't like that, because in 1978, it changed to November 11th, where it's been ever since, wherever it falls. I don't know. It should be a Monday holiday. Yeah, maybe not. Anyway, it is Veterans Day. So for all those who serve the country or who are serving the country, hats off. We thank you for your service. We acknowledge, of course, that you did it. You made this country great, and we are working here to give it a dose of common sense and make it greater, or great again, as Trump might say. So off we go into the world of common sense. Norm, where are we? It's been too long.
Well, we were live on our program when, like 42 days ago, when the shutdown went into effect of the federal government, when they couldn't agree on the spending bill. They perhaps will end it today. So as we know, the Hateful Eight, Democratic senators who, crossed over to join the Republicans for a 60-40 vote in the Senate, advanced the House's legislation. And now it goes back to the House because the Senate threw a few things in. So to make it consistent, the House has to agree to the Senate's changes to the spending bill. And the House Rules Committee this morning apparently did so. And now it goes to the full House as early as this evening. And hopefully for those who want the shutdown to end, and I think most Americans do, if they pass it this evening, that'll be it. But the TSA and the ATC controllers at your airport are not immediately, going to be back on duty. It's going to take a while for all of these delays and cancellations with the airline industry to catch up. Mm-hmm. Probably right up to maybe Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think it still has a good chance of screwing up your holiday travel.
Yeah. And I've heard even like the military, they had to cancel a lot of schools, like they're when they train people to become pilots or fire artillery or whatever, because they bring in contractors and they bring in and they lease out facilities and even lease airplanes. Like tail draggers, which the Navy, for example, doesn't have any propeller tail draggers in its inventory. So believe it or not, they contract out to guys who have World War II tail dragger planes for some training. So things like that, they didn't have the money for. And so there was, there were cancellations in the military of actual readiness, of our troops. So this got into some national security stuff.
Yeah, this was a big one, and fortunately, it looks like it's going to open up. I think there were some conditions on it that were really not really. The Dems are trying to come up with some sort of win out of it, but I think these were conciliations that were offered at the beginning, even.
Yeah.
And I think the other
within the first week.
Yeah. And I think
they had this deal.
There's also an agreement that. Will rehire the people who got fired or something like that, or laid off. But at any rate, it looks like it's over. I wonder why they waited until after the elections.
Right.
I wonder why.
Well, the polls showed Americans mainly were blaming Trump. and the
Of course.
Republicans.
Well, look, it's always Trump's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the interesting person out of the Hateful Eight is John Fetterman. So he came out with a book this week, and he's also one of the 8 who crossed over. And he was pretty consistent all during the shutdown.
Yeah, he was like, this is stupid. Get rid of this.
This is ridiculous. It's like a clean CR. And, let's get back to, feeding people and controlling.
Well, speaking of feeding people, his party's going to eat him as a result of this, I think, as a result of his book and his commentary. And he's sort of an outlier. He's like
Joe Manchin.
He's a moderate at this point. Yeah. And, in a party that is getting, it looks like, if you're going to judge any of the recent electoral results, is getting eaten by its way. I wouldn't even call them in the same family. I think it's a completely different party because you can't say the Democratic Socialists of America or the Democratic Communists of America are the traditional Democrats. They're not.
No.
And I've seen these sort of what I'll call the Hollywood Squares clips where people show like there's some meetings of the DSA and what their goals are. Their goals are not to become Democrats. Their goals are to hijack and take over and eliminate the Democratic Party and make it a socialist party, which is what seems to be happening. Yeah. And guys like Fetterman are not cool with this.
No.
And they're not cool with it because they're not going to get elected. You know, in wherever they are.
Well, he really seems to care about his constituents. He talks a lot about the people that he represents, and they're very common people. They're, people who own guns and people who go to church and, people that work in the oil business or fracking or whatever, like just 6-pack Joes, blue collar people. And that was the base of the Democratic Party.
Used to be.
For a long time. Coal miners.
Used to be.
Just regular Joes, right? And Fetterman seems to be like, that's his, those are the people that he grew up with. And that's the kind of mentality, the Western Pennsylvania mentality that he seems to represent, as opposed to Eastern PA, which is Philadelphia.
That's 2 different states.
It's 2 different.
It really is.
It really is.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. And I guess every state is that way. I mean, I think if you draw a line across Ohio, Northern Ohio is a little different than Southern Ohio to a certain degree. I guess every state has its, it starts to morph into something else.
Yeah, New York City driving that state with the rest of New York is really different. Than the metro area.
Well, I mean, now that we're talking about New York City, I mean, look, I don't think it was a big surprise. I think we all saw this coming, but New York City has elected basically a communist to be their leader, a communist Islamist Hamas supporter to be their leader. And, I think I'm a little, I don't even know what the right word is. I think it's going to be disappointing not to see him fail worse. Because the things he promised, he has no power to try.
No.
He does, and it looks like the government, is it Hochul is the governor?
Yeah.
She is not going to get reelected if she goes down this path, although she's sort of gotten herself in a bind and a vice because she came out and supported Mandani.
Right.
And but now that he's won, he can't impose the kind of income taxes that he wants to without the state going along with it. It's a state level stuff.
Yeah.
So he's going to get to blame her.
Yeah, almost everything he wants to do involves state level.
Right. So it's the classic socialist communist failures.
Right.
It's not that I have bad ideas. It's like, you didn't let me do more. You didn't give me more power to do what I needed to do to really make this happen. And I say disappointing because it's sort of like a laboratory for this lunacy. Like, let them try this crap. Let them try to have, and they will be able to try the grocery store thing. Let them try all this junk. Let them try to hijack private housing. Because what he's going to do, he's already talked about it. He's going to regulate the crap out of the private housing until people say, screw it, I can't comply with this. So they walk away. And then the government's going to suck it up and own it. And now he gets to run housing. And the last time that guy was a landlord was never.
Yeah.
Right.
And the last, it's like, this has never worked in the history of humankind, ever.
Right. Well, to me, so many of the stories that are currently at play, the shutdown, where the SNAP program was highly examined and featured, that 41 million Americans, 1 out of 8 people in Ohio, for example, are somehow dependent, like they're going to starve if they don't get SNAP benefits. And really, the SNAP program like expanded by 50% under Biden.
Under Biden, yeah.
And I happen to know some people that got SNAP benefits, and essentially all you had to do was claim that you're hungry and claim you don't have enough money to buy food, and you would get the benefit.
Well,
You didn't really. They didn't go through your budget and say, well, now what are you spending each week
And
on
what's the end game?
Starbucks? Or what are you spending each week on Netflix? You know, like nobody really goes through these people's budgets and helps them restructure so that they're spending wisely.
It's the
Instead,
classic Thomas Sowell, right? These
Yeah.
programs are never judged based on their outcomes, only their intent.
Yeah.
So look, who's going to argue that if there are people at below the poverty level or people who have kids that can't feed their kids, that there should be some assistance to help them? Nobody would argue that, or very few.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think if
But it's
anything,
got to be real.
this shutdown has exposed some of the nonsense, because you see these people on YouTube and I'm like, well, how are they even filming and putting this? It's like, come on.
Right.
Like I think that I've seen two things that I think are good as a result of this. One, I think a lot of our country has awakened to this notion that there are probably people getting SNAP benefits who don't really need it.
Hello.
Right.
It's
Right.
a good possibility, for
And
sure.
I
Yeah.
like I have that feeling.
Yeah.
And two,
Yeah.
and this is the most important thing I've seen out of this, is like we just had a little snapshot, a little glimpse, a little window of what life used to be like, because those who really needed it were lining up at churches. There were community organizations
Right.
gathering to
Sure.
supply food to people who needed it. In other words, the people of our great country stepped in and did what our country was designed to do, help those in need, not give it to the government and say, you big monolithic Leviathan, fix it for us. It happened at a community level. And when that happens, so much, it awakens our spirit, right? Our spirit as humans.
Sure.
And I think more important or equally important, it creates accountability. And dare I say a little bit of shame. So people don't want to be to have that kind of help. In other words, it makes it real, and it gives people a motivation to overcome whatever strife they're in, as
Right.
opposed to just living in it, because they don't want to look their community in the face and say, I'm taking your money and I don't really need it. It won't happen.
Right.
We're human. Look, we are prideful, and it won't happen. What you're talking about, Norm, is this, and maybe this is an extension of the second benefit, is that if I need help from somebody, it's the old teach a man to fish, right? You're not going to come over and just say, you may do it. Like, here's a plate of lasagna. Now let's sit down and chat at the kitchen table about how we can really help you get on your feet
Exactly.
and balance your own budget and get a job. Or I've got this buddy over
And
here.
the government's
He needs
they're not doing
the
that.
government's not doing that, and it never will do that,
And
because
it never will do
the
that.
government's only involved to pander votes.
That's right.
That's it.
Well, and there's another piece to SNAP as well, too. You got a silent partner that nobody really, well, not a silent partner, but a partner that's not really talked about, is that food's got to come from somewhere.
Somebody's giving it to you, right?
Farmers.
Yeah.
And the farmers are selling that food. So there's a driver there that actually agriculture kind of wants SNAP to be in play.
Well, because the government's buying their food.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And
So that's kind of a dangerous slope as well, too, to a certain degree. I mean, the government's always played that. Okay, you got too much, we'll buy it.
you
got too much, we'll
that's
buy
right.
it, we'll store it. I mean, the butter's a
or
good
destroy
example.
it. Go
Or
back to
destroy
the
it.
Depression. Let's just
Right.
destroy the wheat.
So-
So you got that in play as well too, and you got to have to balance this out of like, okay,
There is
you
one
know,
way through
yeah.
it, and that is to stop it. And if
Yeah.
you stop it, we will
It all
figure it
changes
out.
up. Yeah.
Like
Well,
it will shuffle the deck
In
overnight.
fact,
and
in
we'll
the
figure it
5
out.
weeks, nobody starved.
That's right.
So we
Yeah.
had Schumer out there saying the Republicans want to starve babies. Literally, that's what he said.
It's such.
And
crap.
that's such an overblown, like you're not leaving any room for real working relationship when
Exactly.
you say
Yes,
things like that.
yes.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like even though I don't necessarily care for John Thune or Mitch McConnell or Rand Paul, I mean, they all have foibles, they all have issues. But the idea that you would say that those gentlemen or whoever,
know.
Ted Cruz,
Yeah.
that they want to starve babies is so absurd and so over the top that this is where we've come.
Well, and
as
again,
a society that we
pointing
talk
out,
like that to each other.
it's so stupid. It's such hyperbole nonsense.
Right.
It's
But,
total nonsense.
there is another. But back to the point I was making, I was at a relative's house over the weekend, and some of this crap was on the news, and I heard this conversation. I'm not going to mention names or people who wrote it, but just say it was a relative's house, and the one relative said to the spouse, "Who can we help? Who do we know that we can buy a Thanksgiving meal for?"
Okay, sure.
I've never heard that conversation when the government's involved supplying it for everybody.
No.
Not once.
Right.
Now, I know the people I'm talking about, and they would, in fact. They are the people that would go do that. But this was an active all right, so this is going on. We know these people need it. Who can we help? And they're not saying, I'm going to go give money to some giant national charity. They want to do it at the community level. They want to go over to somebody quietly. And another conversation happened. We got to be careful because we don't want to make people feel, people get pissed at that kind of stuff.
Sure.
That we're doing this for them. So we got to be careful. And the point is that the only folks that know how to handle that are your neighbors, are your community members, are your relatives.
Well, like I said,
the churches.
The SNAP thing was one of a whole smorgasbord of things that people were just, outraging about. And the other one, of course, was a continuation of the ACA, subsidies that came on during COVID, which have turned out to benefit households that have $400,000 of annual income and up. So that when they're in the ACA and they're shopping, their rates are getting subsidized, and you're talking about a wealthy household. And this is the kind of stuff the Democrats were insisting be included in the in the spending bill.
Yep.
And the Republicans were saying, no, COVID's over. That was a temporary measure to help people out when they weren't working so that they could afford health care. And the Democrats want to make those kind of subsidies permanent. And in lieu of that, they're saying to the Republicans, well, you don't have a health plan. Well, I got news for you, man. I don't think we need a food plan. I don't think we need a health care plan.
But it's a human right.
We don't need
You have a
any
We're the only modern country that has no health care.
What we need is a
It's human right. Norman, I tell you right now.
So what we need on whether
it's absurd.
Whether it's the air traffic controllers, whether it's SNAP, whether it's the ACA, healthcare, it all needs to be privatized.
No problem too big, no problem too small. Just ask Mondani.
There needs to be market solutions for all of this, and we know what they were. And if the Democrats want to debate Obamacare all over again, hey, man, I'm locked and loaded. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about breaking down these barriers between states. It's ridiculous that Medical Mutual in Ohio can't sell to, say, I don't know, somebody in Mississippi. There's all of these little protectorates that exist for the insurance industry. And frankly, under the ACA, the only people who are coming out ahead are the insurance companies.
Well,
rates have gone up.
It's rigged by them, of course. Oh, my gosh.
Because what happens, Steve, go back to your Thomas Sowell. The more you subsidize health care, the more people are going to spend it. And I'm talking to people, their moms and dads are doing all kinds of unnecessary surgeries just because they have the money to do it for free. It's all free, it's covered. So maybe I don't really need cataract surgery, but what the hell? It's free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'll just go get it. It costs me nothing.
Hoarding. It's called hoarding.
Or I'll get instead of
that's
walking
a service,
up,
but it's the same logic as hoarding.
Instead of walking up the stairs, I'll get one of those escalators that takes my lazy ass up.
I better get it now because it might be gone later. It's the mentality. I'll get it. Why not?
Right.
Let's do it.
The scooters, the free scooters,
Want beer?
Free this.
Don't cost nothing.
Right. Jeez, remember in Arizona when they came out with a really sloppy EV giveaway program? My dad at the time lived in Sedona. He said every wealthy guy, every millionaire in Sedona went out and got a free golf cart. They got a free golf cart because because Arizona would give you the first like $8,000 or $9,000 towards an EV. And before anybody could define what an EV was, they were golf carts.
Yeah.
So
That's
they
because
all
those
got a
humans-
free
those
freaking
humans-
golf cart.
You're not good people.
Oh my God.
But-
I mean, this is
it's the
government
problem-
largesse.
It's the problem with all of this type of government regulation. It puts blinders on the fundamental notion that we are all human. We are going to behave as humans behave. And this is the classic John Locke, Thomas Hobbes debate. Like, we're going to behave as humans behave. And where's that going to take us? And it just happens to turn out that a capitalistic system underpinned with a certain morality moves people in a positive direction faster and more efficiently than any other system that's ever been tried.
Correct.
Because it accounts for human behavior.
Right.
When you cram down regulation, it's not that people are going to say, "Oh, great idea, Mandani. I'm going to just change my human nature for
Right.
you because I think you're the smartest guy on the planet and
Right.
you can tell me how to live." So no, of course not. The millionaires are going to leave. The landlords are going to sell. The people are not going to, and the people that come in, I heard this. This was, I forget if it was maybe Victor Davis Hanson or whoever, or no, it wasn't. It was Betts. David Betts, he was talking about this. He goes, it's not that people are going to flee New York. That's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But watch out for the people who are going to go to New York because it's not going to be the law-abiding
Right.
producers in society. It's going to be the people who
want free stuff.
who are going to either take advantage of all the free stuff or take advantage of the lack of law and order and just go subsist and apply
Well,
their
and
we
know where this leads, guys. We know where this leads.
Swallow. It always does.
It leads to these big, huge deficits for these municipalities, like in Chicago, like in L.A., like in New York. What's coming, and then it'll be another bailout for the Big Apple. The rest of the country are going to be asked to bail out New York City.
Just like California,
it's
same stuff.
inevitable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there is no such thing as a free lunch. So when Mamdani gives away all this stuff and the city sinks further and further into debt, they're going to come to the rest of the country and say, do you really want the money capital of America, New York City, where the stock exchange is and where all the the banks and all the do you really want this to sink into a morass of bankruptcy, or are we going to bail it out? And you know what's going to happen? We're going to bail them out. And some lady who lives in Dubuque, Iowa, is going to be bailing out free bus rides
Unwittingly.
for people.
She won't even know she's doing
Right.
And it's
Right.
just unfair as hell.
Yeah. To your point, I want to change a little bit. You
Sure.
said something about, I agree. A lot of this stuff, if we could privatize it, it'd be great. It'd be great. But I also see it from the standpoint of if you're a D or an R, you don't want to let that go because let's imagine that all of these pain points that we heard about SNAP and the airlines and that sort of thing were all privatized. There's no suffering. You would never even know the government was shut down.
Exactly right.
So neither party is going to want to let go of any of these programs.
It is a good point, right? It's
because it would go silent because
Exactly
you're in a
right.
shutdown. Never felt it.
The government-
Because we felt it because of SNAP and the
Right.
airlines. If those were privatized, we'd amongst other things, we'd have never felt this.
The
right.
less the government does, the less
And neither party is going to let that go.
the less pain
And I
gets
saw-
inflicted.
Exactly.
I think it was along those
Yeah.
lines. I was listening. I don't know if it was Ben Shapiro. One of the shows I was listening to the other day, and he was talking about polls. And there's this sliding scale about people's confidence in government, and our confidence in government is directly correlated to how big government is. In other words, the more the government takes on, the less confidence we have in it.
Sure.
And
Right.
back in the 50s, when the government wasn't involved in any of this crap, our confidence in the government was really high. In the 80s, our confidence in the government was really high. And as soon as we take over and the SNAP goes on and they take over all the programs and all the charity and all the crap, it's like,
Right.
of course, because the government sucks. And why does it suck? Because it's populated by people who don't have any motive to be efficient.
Right.
And I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm saying it as a fact.
They didn't go into it with that mindset. It
That's
just
right.
happens.
It just happens.
Well, and there's
Yeah, it
there's
does.
also a lot of soft-headed kind of like I don't know, people bringing almost like a religious kind of perspective, but it's really secular, where I hear statements from like the hens on The View that we will be judged by the way that we treat the least in society. And it's like, that's the kind of Christian kind of mentality that is a personal challenge.
Exactly.
That's not a challenge for government.
Collectively.
There's nothing in the Constitution about we
at
owe
all.
people food or rent or health care. My God.
This upsets me more than anything. I mean, look, I'm no biblical scholar, but I know a few things.
Don't use my religion.
Christ was not talking to the government. In fact, he explicitly was not talking to, like, render under Caesar what is Caesar's and render under God what is God's.
Well, he was giving everyone a playbook to poke government in the eye.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
in a non-confrontational way.
He was talking about our, like you said, Norm, our individual responsibility to live this way.
Exactly.
And what these idiots on The View are doing, and what I see, look, lots of people on Facebook who screw this up. They say, well, you're God, or Christ said, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, listen, you dumbass.
No question.
He wasn't saying government pick up the mantle for all this stuff and do it. He was saying, no, you do it.
And you
individuals do
Steve,
it.
Those are the same people who look at the disestablishment clause in the Constitution, the First Amendment,
or the entanglement clause.
About that, government should not be.
Yeah, they're the first ones to say don't incorporate religion, and then they're arguing religion.
And then they want to use religion as a basis for government programs. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You're the same people who say we can't say an Our Father in a grade school, and the government shouldn't have anything to do with any religious church. So which one is it?
It is no conflict with my faith in Christ.
Yeah.
To vote against a government program.
No
question.
None. Not at all.
Not at all, right? None. And anybody, and like they don't even know the doctrine well enough to realize how stupid they sound. It's not that now. Now the other side is also like we also have to live it. We have to walk it out, and we have to do our best. But the problem is, like so much like you said, Brett, it's an instruction book for life, because when the government takes over this crap, it disincentivizes my interest in doing it.
Sure.
Like I said, at the local level or whatever. I still try.
Why give to United Way if the government's going to do all this stuff?
Right. It's like, no, they're getting it from here. I don't want to waste my money on that. I'm spending it in my tax dollars over here.
Exactly.
And look, it just is the case. There's a leap of faith here at the end that if you get rid of all this nonsense, the community will emerge and take care of people.
It will.
So let me say something about President Trump. So he has really aggravated me this week. He has come out with this idea that there ought to be some kind of tariff bonus, for example.
Oh, this drives me bananas.
This $2,000 check per U.S. citizen? Pay off our freaking debt?
Well, it's a payoff to us.
Right.
Shut up.
To shut up. It's more
just
like this
another
lay on the couch COVID money.
God,
it's the
like,
same
what the
damn
hell,
thing.
dude?
And it's like, President Trump, you cannot buy me that cheaply.
Right. Well, and we're still owed $5,000 from Doge.
Right. Look,
So,
I mean,
you've taken the money.
Let me throw two more at you. So he did an interview with Laura Ingraham of Fox News, and he also said that he's pro H-1B visa because American workers can't come out of a high school or a college and work at a missile factory. That's almost an exact quote. That basically we need Indians coming on this H-1B visa program to work in our factories. And Laura's like, well, there are Americans that'll do those jobs, train them, educate them properly, and they should be the ones getting those jobs. Number two, the other thing he said that just blows me away, we have 350,000 Chinese communist students in America on college campuses. And American kids are not getting those slots at Harvard and Yale and whatever because the tuition being paid by non-American like Chinese is almost double the tuition.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're making money hand over fist by turning down American kids. And Trump's said, no, I'm in favor of continuing to allow Chi-Coms to come to America and take slots at our engineering and medical schools and all of this. And I'm just befuddled. This is not the Donald Trump that I voted for.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
People don't realize this. When you forgive debt, when you call this a refund, whatever, this is inflationary. This is the same thing Biden did with the anti-inflation.
Trump turns out to be a big spender.
Trump's a huge spender.
He's a huge spender.
He's not a fiscal Republican in the traditional way.
I'm sorry to keep, but I just want to throw this at you, Steve, and then please go on. But in the last 30 days, I think it was, because of the jack up in spending, it used to be every 100 days we were adding $1 trillion to the debt. In 30 days, we added $1 trillion, I think, during the month of October. It might have been September. But in one of the recent 30-day windows, in just 1 month, we added another $1 trillion. We're now at $39 trillion.
Yeah. And look, let's say Trump's going to
know what that leads to? That leads to our kids having tax rates of like 75% of their paycheck.
And look, Biden did this. Let's give everybody a bunch of money, and we're going to do it at a time when there aren't any products to buy, or cars were backed up because of COVID. It was all backed up. Mm-hmm. It's like, so what's that do? It drives up the prices. It's like double inflationary, and Trump is sort of doing the same thing. You can't just give people $2,000 because it's inflationary. It's the same as forgiving debt. It's the same as it's the same crap.
Well,
it's not a refund.
And his thought about the 50-year mortgage is insane.
It's insane.
That's insane.
Why do it?
There's no math to that makes any sense.
And what's the government's role in that?
30 is already stretching it. I mean, you may have a 30, but guess what? If you've got a 30, you're probably doing double payments to get out of it.
25
50,
years,
there's no way.
If you have a 50-year mortgage, 25 years into that mortgage, you don't own anything.
You don't own anything. Right. Exactly.
Right. The first half is almost all interest.
It doesn't address the problem that the housing shortage is because there are not enough homes.
No.
Right. It's just
start building homes.
It goes back. I'm sorry, guys. I know it sounds like I'm bragging, but Jerry Revish. When I wasn't friends with him, and he's been on our show, and we're all friends with Jerry now, but when Jerry Revish was an anchor for WBNS, local television station here in Columbus, he attended the inauguration of Donald Trump. And I remember him interviewing me, and I'm just a common guy just there observing this event, not necessarily a Trumpster at all at that point. But I told Jerry, he's not a conservative. He is just not.
No, he's not.
And he's proving it every day.
He's not. He's a pragmatist.
And he kind of sticks his finger up, and which way the wind's blowing, and
not really putting. It's suggested to him, and that sounds like a great idea. Let's go with it.
Yeah,
it almost
like this tips thing.
I know.
It's bizarre. You pick certain people who get tips.
That's inflationary. It's just like the whole thing, and now it's. Of course, that's created all sorts of problems in the tipping.
All kinds of. Right. The IRS doesn't know how to issue regulations. Right. So, I think they're up to 97 job descriptions now that traditionally get tipped.
Right. It just is stupid.
Jeez.
It's insane.
Well, what do you do? What do you do at the holidays with that?
What about a plumber? A plumber comes over. You got a gushing, faucet. And you give the guy an extra $100 tip for coming middle of the night.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks,
bet.
Bob.
Save my backside. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
But because he's not listed in the IRS regulations, he'll have to pay taxes on that tip.
I know this.
It's bizarre to me.
I've reduced my legal fees now to almost nothing.
You're such a crook, Steve.
But if you are happy with the service that I provided, tips are encouraged. Tips are encouraged. Of course, it's defined a way that I can't do that. But,
right.
But
I didn't know it was up to 91,
something like 97,
in the 90s,
and counting, right? Lord. Because I'm sure more people are coming to the IRS and saying, "Well, we get tips sometimes. We want to be included."
And and there are certain scenarios like we just talked about. That plumber should not be dinged because you gave an extra. I've done that with AAA. A guy comes out, terrible weather, fixes the tire because he just puts a plug in.
And you're so grateful.
I drop him a 50 right there going, and I did that in front of the kids a couple of times going, you know what? When they come out, crappy weather, and they're fixing your tire.
It is back-breaking work.
It is, and they're in the crappiest weather. Right. Thank them.
Sure.
Thank them with the tip.
Because he's making $15 an hour or something.
You should see and you've seen it too, I know, and it's not just my experience, but like the smile on their face.
Oh, they're shocked. Right.
Exactly.
Because
they're not
few
expecting
people
it.
will do that.
And I think I love making people, not that I'm dropping 50s all day or anything like that,
No.
but it's kind of fun to make somebody's day when they've come to your help.
Paying it forward.
Exactly.
For those who know, I do little dilly-dally and remodeling and contracting work on the side, and I had this big tile job at my old house. And anybody who knows anything about a tile job, it's really heavy. So if you're taking out old tile and replacing it with new tile, you're creating a lot of heavy stuff.
So people, Steve is one of the best lawyers, I think, in the country, and so
I can hardly say that, but thank you.
His billing rate, I have no idea what it is, but I'm sure it's several hundred if you want white glove treatment. Can you imagine the cost of that tile job at his rates?
Well, look.
It's the most expensive tile floor.
It's the cheapest therapy you can purchase. It's the cheapest therapy you can purchase. Get your hands busy.
If I hired you to do a tile floor at my house, and assuming you were willing, it'd probably be a $10,000
I'd be happy to come help you, and it would cost you nothing. Right, it would cost you nothing. But to your point, when you throw away tile, it gets really heavy, and I threw tile away in the garbage.
Yeah,
and I had my barrels out there,
right.
And I waited the next morning when when the refuse guys were coming, and I went out there with $20, or maybe it was more, for each one of them.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Look, guys, I know that this is not your average bear.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah,
and it feels good.
Yes. Right.
It
right.
feels good.
Right.
Now, is that taxable to them? Should be, I suppose. I don't know what the heck it is.
You know what? And hopefully pocket, and they don't.
Right.
Hopefully
they're not going to report it.
Well, I sent them a 1099.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm going to need your IDs, guys.
Do you want to sign here after I give you the 20?
So guys, one little thing the Senate attached to the spending bill is this THC intoxicating things that were left out of the Schedule 1. The original Schedule 1 description of THC has some. It's a little messy in it, and there's some loopholes. And one of them is a compound of THC called Delta 8, and they've been putting it in beverages and vape.
It's
stuff.
Intoxicating.
And it's intoxicating. Yeah. And so they put a ban in the spending bill that the Senate sent to the House. Rand Paul tried to get it taken out. I don't think it's going to be taken out. I think it's probably going to pass. And there's this company in Ohio now. They've been here for about 5 to 6 weeks called MAPCO. They've opened 24 stores in Ohio. Ohio is now, in just a month, Ohio is their top market for selling these beverages that have this Delta 8 or some other form of THC in it that's not covered by the DEA, the FDA's Schedule 1. So there's some real money here that's on the line, and if the House passes this, I guess that entire industry is going to tank.
How is adding THC to a spending bill?
Because of the Department of Agriculture.
And there's dollars attached to it?
There's dollars attached to it.
Okay, all right.
That's how they're tying it in. Now, Rand Paul says, hey, the subject matter, that's a little strained. He's saying there should be a separate piece of
exactly. I'm not against the conversation about this, but it's like, why are you dingleberrying this thing again?
Yeah, it's just,
my God, every opportunity that anybody can add things to
then
something.
You don't get these big, beautiful bills if you don't do that.
Well, I guess Rand is saying there's so much of this stuff being grown in the state of Kentucky that it's really going to hurt those farmers.
Weed, you mean?
Yeah.
Marijuana? Yeah.
But that's a separate conversation.
It is
that should be tabled and have a deep dive into that.
This is the same stuff that DeWine tried to make illegal by Governor Fiat, like he was just going to.
And just to be clear, this Delta 8 is a component of marijuana, but it's not THC. And so if you look at the scheduled drugs, this chemistry now lets people extract certain components and it doesn't fit within a definition of what's unlawful or what's scheduled, whether state or federal.
Yeah.
And that enables the gas stations to sell it.
Yeah.
And it's a cat and mouse game. Sooner or later, then there'll be Delta 7 or Delta 8.1 or Delta, they'll come up with another one to work around it. But those are the signs you see, Delta 8 in the vape shops.
Yep. Yeah.
Even though they're not weed dispensaries.
When I was in Canada, I just ordered an energy drink, and I'm halfway through it. And my buddy says, hey, that's got some kind of cannabis or whatever. And I'm like, really? And turn around, looked at the label, and I'm like, holy crap.
Because
I didn't even know.
CBD is like when they started to make or lift the regs on CBD, all these other components came out.
Yeah.
Well, to your point, that's kind of dangerous. I mean,
I didn't know. I just thought it was an energy drink.
Right. I mean, of course, buyer beware. You better read the label on whatever you buy and such. But still, if it's not prominent, and again, that's why it should be talked separately. If you're going to do this, okay, this is how the marketing's got to happen. This is how manufacturing, this is how labeling's got to happen. Mm-hmm. So we three don't accidentally buy this thing that we didn't want.
Yeah.
I think
they're lacing my energy drinks with Delta 8.
There's some logic to this. I don't think it's necessarily prohibitive. It's just tell people what's in it so you don't accidentally buy it.
I would lots of government regulation I do not favor, but labeling stuff that has an intoxicating component to it, I think that should be labeled.
Sure, exactly.
Just real fast, guys, there's this mega Supreme Court case on the tariff powers of the presidency. Congress delegated and has delegated so much of its authority to the executive branch historically. And that is what the White House basically has been arguing, is that Trump imposed these tariffs under emergency clauses in various pieces of legislation that Congress has done over the years. And some of them go back hundreds of years. I mean, a long ways.
Yep.
And we're just going to have to see. But the amount at stake that would, in theory, I think they're going to, if they say Trump does not have the power under the legislation that he's claiming he does, I think they're going to make it prospective for the future. I think tariffs that have already been collected, I can't imagine the Supreme Court saying you have to refund that, because it's $1 trillion.
It's a lot.
And I can tell you this, my company has paid thousands of that tariff because I import from Europe.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. I have, instead of it being 10%, I paid 35% on several things. Wow. And some of that was for like 30-day windows, and then it went to 10, and then it went to 15.
But you're going to eat that.
Oh, yeah. I can't imagine that I'm going to get that refunded.
No. I'm talking about when you resell it.
Oh,
you eat that 35%.
Depends on what you're selling it for.
I add the cost in to, some of it I will take less of a profit, but some of it I have to pass on.
Do you understand what tariffs
because
are
my
doing?
margin
is
much less than 35%.
Right.
Eventually, this is what tariffs do.
It's a tax.
It's a tax.
It's a tax.
And the court said it was.
Yeah,
basically.
I think that I don't know how this shakes out.
Well, they haven't pronounced anything yet.
No, but in their talks around it. But yeah, correct.
Well, they challenged both sides
in the lower courts
during the challenge.
Scott Bessent, who was there for the oral arguments, Secretary of the Treasury, he said that he thought, in his opinion, that the White House lawyers did a very good job. And I guess basically the plan B is, if the Supreme Court says, no, you picked the wrong piece of legislation to issue the tariffs, that there's 10 other pieces of like Trump will just keep trying differently, I guess. We'll see.
Well, and if there is a legitimate use of this power, then so be it.
Right.
Don't just be grabbing 100-year-old legislation. I don't know. Well, it sounds like it.
Yeah. Maybe so.
For sure. Yeah. Exactly.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But if you read the Constitution, the power to tariff is Congress's.
Right.
It is clear as day in the Constitution. But Congress has delegated all kinds of things to the executive branch.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But I mean,
that's the swamp. That's what we always talk about is unelected bureaucrats that are basically acting like little mini Congresses and inventing regulations out of whole cloth.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think ultimately the Supreme Court is probably going to strike down most of these tariffs.
Interesting. Wow.
I wonder too. too.
I just don't think
hearing
it's
of the arguments. Yeah,
it fundamentally there's no constitutional executive power in the Constitution.
It's not
so
there.
It's delegated by Congress.
That's right.
And I have a huge, maybe this is my hope, not what I think as much, or maybe both. I have a huge problem with the executive branch of government declaring emergencies and doing whatever the hell it wants. And, sometimes I agree, and that doesn't mean I don't agree with what they're trying to do.
Sure.
But the next time I won't.
Sure.
And as I always do, I like to look for what the lever of power is that is being employed. In other words, what are they using? How are we what lever of power is getting used here? And then how is the next person going to use it?
Right.
And this is where I think Trump's in dangerous water on these tariffs.
Well,
I don't think he can just on a whim do stuff.
Wasn't that stated in arguments that one of the justices saying, well, what does that stop the next Democratic president from doing this?
Doesn't.
And
a lot of Democrats are for the tariffs, mind you.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Like the entire UAW.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's correct.
I mean, this is
that's right.
But this
is what Congress is for.
But I think the comment back was like, well, we're doing it first.
Do you remember that?
That's not even logical.
Take the motorcycle industry, like under Ford or was it Nixon, when the Japanese motorcycle industry was basically destroying Harley Davidson. They put on a huge tariff on motorcycles from Japan.
Yeah,
I mean, it's protectionist for those union jobs in many cases.
Yeah, they initially did that with Huffy bicycles as well too.
Sure,
Huffy went to Congress in the 70s and said Japan's killing us. Put a tariff on it, and they did. It was on Schwinn, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and another foreign country is starting to make some bicycles. Huffy went back to Congress. I think it might have been about 5-7 years later. My uncle worked for Huffy, and he was telling a story over the weekend. And Congress said, no, this time we're not going to do it.
Yeah. And now they're it's a Chinese brand.
Yeah.
If you buy a Huffy bike.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I think the ears are there at the right time, but it's a tough situation.
I'm sure the White House didn't make this pitch to the Supreme Court, but one of the emergencies that I would point to is the insinuation by China into congressional pockets. So the idea, the emergency in a way is being caused by the corruption of the Congress. The Congress is so bought off by the Chinese. When you look at, I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat, but when you look at the kind of ways that they try to get involved in the elections, in business opportunities, whether it's Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell, whose wife, her Chinese family owns a shipping company. And curiously enough, Mitch McConnell never addressed anything to do with the communist Chinese shipping industry and taking over our ports, like in L.A., right? And in Charleston, right? So, and Pelosi, right, bought off by the Chinese. People say Obama and Biden and Hunter bought off. So in one way, part of the emergency by putting like 100% tariff on Chinese goods is that our government officials are corrupt. I mean, and I can't imagine Trump making that argument to the Supreme Court because that would really tick everybody off. But let's call a spade a spade. Our Congress has been bought off by the Chinese.
Well, I mean, it is remarkable how rich they've all become.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I say that generically or generally. I mean, I'm not exploring individuals. But
right. That's not the emergency that they had in mind when they passed the legislation.
That's right.
But look, if we're going to do anything about the Chinese and their organ harvesting and their oppression of Christians and the Falun Gong and their military aggression, we have to not only win the AI war, but we've got to win the economic war. And right now, like Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, he came back for China and said, there's no question, they want every manufacturing job in America. They want them all. They want our entire manufacturing base to be transferred to them.
Of course, right?
And that, to me, that is an emergency.
This is going to come down to what's your definition of an emergency and who gets to decide.
Yeah.
And I was railing against this when I heard DeWine declare emergencies during COVID, or when I heard you heard rumblings about, all right, so this is gun violence is an emergency, or racism is an emergency.
Right.
And once you do, or climate is an emergency. And once you do that,
Sure.
you've opened up the floodgates of power, and it
right.
is limitless.
That's right.
And I just don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it.
So you just mentioned something that's really interesting, Steve. In the Ohio governor race between Vivek Ramaswamy, okay, and the putative Democrat, which is Dr. Amy Acton, they just came out with a poll. Now, it was Hart research, but they were paid by the Ohio Federation of Teachers, and it's a dead heat between her and she. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, I know Amy Acton. I know exactly. I mean,
well,
look,
go, Steve, go. Just
I don't
tell
blame.
us who she is.
I don't blame her, but she was the figurehead of all the COVID nonsense during
Under DeWine.
Under DeWine, yes.
Right.
So DeWine would put her up there because she was a pretty woman and she was, likable enough, and she'd have to go up there and take all the hits for all the crap as the director of health, and
For the state of Ohio.
For the state of Ohio. So she was always the one, and
she's a Democratic candidate. They say is the leading candidate.
I don't think she's going to win, but crazier things have happened. She certainly doesn't appear governor, whatever.
Yeah, and I think within the party they're even kind of saying that too.
Yeah, she doesn't strike me as an executive leader.
I wonder if Sherrod Brown or somebody else might jump in.
I don't know.
Or I don't know.
There are some strong Democrats that could jump into this race.
And they better put their hat in pretty quick.
Who's that former congressman that's from Youngstown? He's excellent. Ryan, right?
Ryan, I think they've been talking about that.
Isn't he talking about running?
Yeah, I'd heard that too. Yes, exactly. Or at least he's on the precipice of making up his mind.
And he's kind of a Fetterman Democrat. Mm-hmm. Like he's really practical.
That's what's going to get you elected in Ohio.
I think so.
Yeah, that's what's going to get you on that side of the fence.
Yeah.
But all right, let's do some good and bad.
Okay. Who wants to start?
Good. I'm hearing rumblings, and this is not directly for Ohio, but we could get some not fallout, but some extra for it. Indiana is looking at these micro nuclear plants for energy.
Yes.
And I'm thinking this is a cool idea.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're all for it. They're all about it. Now, my brother-in-law, out of the blue, got asked if he could house the Indiana governor overnight. He was on his way from one place to the other. So they had a roundtable of some Republican people there. And he was big on this. Like, this is going to happen in Indiana. And
it should happen in Ohio. We used to do this. We used to have energy nuclear down in Pomeroy. Wasn't there a facility that got shut down during?
And there's one up by Toledo.
And the turnaround is very quick, apparently. So, I mean, I think we need to be looking at alternative ways to be handling.
It's limitless. Look,
exactly.
The technology
and they're miniature to make a smaller footprint.
Well, technology's advanced beyond the China syndrome.
We've had the miniaturization since Admiral Rickover commenced the nuclear navy.
Yeah.
I mean, we have reactors on submarines.
And submarines that are...
we're doing that safely, apparently.
Apparently, exactly.
For what now, 60 years?
Exactly.
So
I really don't have anything bad, so I just want to throw I thought that was really exciting
all you're doing
news.
is making water hot via nuclear reaction, so that you have steam to power a turbine.
Yeah.
It's just all you're doing is creating. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It is not blowing up a bomb.
Right.
For God's sakes.
And Jane Fonda, the Jane Fonda China syndrome that era is done.
Gone. Yeah.
3 Mile Island, we've learned.
Right. Well, Meta. So no, not Meta. Amazon. So Jeff, whatever his name is, Bezos. He bought 3 Mile Island.
I thought I heard.
So he's gonna reopen it.
Good and bad on your side, Norm?
Yeah, so good. I don't know if you guys were outside last night, but the Northern Lights were incredible.
I did not see that.
I did not. I saw some pictures.
Right?
Of it.
Crimson red.
Wow.
Cool.
And it went on for a while. So that was really
cool.
Ohio's snow squalls cleared up enough that we had perfectly clear skies last night to enjoy the show.
Nice.
My bad is I recently did a trip and rented a car. It was supposed to be gas. I got an EV. And the guy at the counter said, well, you got to bring it back with 70% of a charge. So on the day I had to return it, I got up super early and started this enormous hunt for an EV recharging station. And guys, I got to tell you, it took me an hour to find one, and it trickled. I got like 1% of a charge. So I was at 39%. It took 30 minutes to go from 39% charge to 40. I got 1%
Does it
increase.
jump up? It probably jumps up exponentially. Like there's probably like blocks. Who knows?
So I bailed. I took it back without
down.
it being fully charged, and it's a $35, recharge.
that's
and
worth
I'm
it.
like,
yeah,
I'm not going to sit here for hours and blow my entire morning.
Wow.
But this EV infrastructure is not what it's cracked up to be.
No,
is
I see
what I'm
lots of guys sitting there scratching their heads at the charging stations while I fill up my gas and get the hell out of town.
Exactly.
Bye-bye.
All right, good and bad. My good and bad is really both. I mean, hats off to all those, like my family member I talked about, who are out there helping those who are hungry, or even those they perceive to be hungry. This is what we need to be doing, folks. Get out, figure out where the help is needed in the community. And look, I would love to say that the government's going to learn its lesson and get its hand out of all this crap. It won't. The only way it's possibly going to happen is if we do it. And I can't even say that that's likely, but it won't happen unless we all get out there and get involved in our communities and try to help those who need it, and not just do it for the show of it, but do it to really figure out what's helping people and push people in the right direction.
May I
with
just,
love, not pride, with love.
Thank you, Steve. And may I just add on to that something that Ruth Crum, this wonderful lady who's since passed away, used to run the food bank in my community. And she would always admonish me and other people that feel the holiday season. And she'd say, Norman, people need to eat beyond just Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not just hungry at
So
Thanksgiving.
I waddled over there more than just on the holidays because, that really affected me. I thought about that a lot. And it's like, you can drop off a turkey and pumpkin pie and all that. But they got to eat the next day and the day after that. So
anyway,
thank you, Steve.
All right, hats off to all the vets who enjoyed Veterans Day yesterday. Till next week, we are coming at you. Well, that didn't work out. We are coming at you each and every week, right from the middle. Till next week, we'll see you then.